Good day, I am Julie Dumapis together with my group mates, Mr. Ariel Jeffrey and Miss Kyrene Gamutlong. So our report is about language of poetry, which is also known as the poetic language or poetic devices. So let us define what is language of poetry. So it is a tools of sound or meaning that a poet can use to make the poem more surprising, vivid, complex, or interesting. It is also known or called as a figurative language, and is also a language of paradox, which means the contradiction revealing an unexpected truth. And it is also known as the language of sophistry, hard, bright, and witty, and also understood in the context of actual poetry itself. We also have the it draws readers' attention to the uses of language in poem that contribute to the certain creation of a meaning. So as we all know, a poetry reveals unexpected truth or a subject which is conveyed to a more creative way or aesthetic way. So now let us proceed with the types of language of poetry or language devices. So we have the imagery, which is the representation of sense of impression. We also have the diction, which is the slang or expressions. We also have the rhyme, which is the correspondence of sound between words. And we also have the techniques and devices. These are the tools to achieve a certain sound or rhythm through or with our poetry or poem. We also have the figure of speech, which is the expressions or figurative devices. And now let us go, what is imagery in language of poetry? So the word used to describe the types of image a poet uses throughout the poem. It is also the verbal representation of a sense of impression. So in imagery, this is something that you can imagine by the words they are using with the image of how they perceive the image through words or verbally. Now, and under the imagery, we have its type, which is the visual images, tactile images, auditory images, gustatory images, and olfactory images. Now let us have visual images or the sight. We have the example here, the lookout man will see some lakes of milk color light on the sea's night purple. By the way the words are used, you are able to conceptualize what the author is trying to convey or to show. We also have the tactile images, which means the images through touch. We have the only things moving are swirls of snow. As I lift the mailbox door, I feel it's cold iron. So we have here the I feel it's cold. So it's literally mean that we also are able to experience what the author wants to convey or portray. And now we have the auditory images, which means the sounds. So we have the example, she quietly rolled flour tortillas, the papa's cracking in the hot lard would wake me. So in this example, we can also imagine the sound made by the author or what he wants to convey via his words or choice of words. Now let us go with the gustatory images or the taste. We have the take out the 3-pound leg of lamb, rub it with salt, pepper, cumin, then push in 2 gloves of garlic splinters. So without experiencing it, we are able to experience what he wants because of the descriptions or the explanations through his words. And lastly, we have the olfactory images, which is the smells. We have here the morning comes to conscious of fate-tailed smells of beer from the sawdust trampled street, with all its muddy feet that press to early coffee strands. As we all know, if we say coffee, it means that the aroma or the smells of a coffee, we are able to experience what the author or the character was portraying in this image or in these words he used to convey the words or experience he wants via his words and with the use of imagery not that we see or the physical or the actual thing that we are able to see, but also what we imagine in our minds through their words or choice of words.
Hello everyone. So I will be tackling about the rhyme, diction, and techniques and devices of poetic language. So first off, rhyme is the correspondence of sound between words. It is the repetition of syllables, typically at the end of the line. So for example, is the nursery rhyme, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So as we can observe, there is a repetition of sound at the end of each line. So for example, the star and R, and the sky and high. So okay, so we have presented four types of rhyme: exact rhymes, and exact rhymes, end rhymes, and internal rhymes. So in exact rhymes, these are the words that concluding the same consonant or vowel sound. So exact, the word itself exact, it means they are the same. In Tagalog, magkamukha. Okay, so next, in exact rhymes, these are words that have similar sounds. So the difference between exact and inexact, exact rhymes are the same consonant or vowel sounds, while in inexact rhymes, it's just the similar sound, not the same. It's just similar sounds. Okay, so next we have end rhymes. So end rhymes, these are words that rhyme at the end of the line. So yeah, it is found at the end of the line. So for example, the massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. So as we can observe, the band and hand are found at the end of the line. So okay, next the internal rhymes, words that rhyme in the beginning or middle of a line. So these words are found within the same line of poetry. Okay. For example, I had a cat who wore a hat. So as you can see, the cat and hat are found in the same line. So this is internal rhymes. So that's it for the rhyme. So next, we move on to the diction. So this is more likely the linguistic choice of a writer to effectively convey an idea, point of view, or to tell us a story. So we have three types of diction: the formal diction, neutral diction, and informal dictions. So we now move on to the first type of diction, the formal diction. These are words that appear a bit more elegant and extravagant. So formal diction also uses sophisticated language or without a slang. Okay, so it also sticks on the grammatical rules and syntax. So for example, the Hamlet by Shakespeare. The long words and sophisticated sentences structure makes the language both beautiful to hear and meaningful to understand. So, okay, that's the formal diction. And next, we move on to the neutral diction. So, these are the words that appear ordinary and that you hear every day. So, it has simpler vocabulary, and it can be used in variety of setting to reach broad audiences. So it is commonly used in essays and newspaper articles. So next up, informal diction. So informal diction is also called the colloquial language. So words in phrase that are slang expressions or the colloquial or the ordinary words. So this is often used in narrative literature. So one of the example of informal diction is their eyes were watching God. So the character speaking in this literary piece established herself as a woman in the South who is speaking her mind. So the informal and colloquial dialects does much of the characterization work for her. So this is much more conversational than the formal diction. Okay, so we move on to the techniques and devices of poetic language. Okay, so we have here six. We have presented six type of techniques and devices of poetic language. So first, the alliteration. So the repetition of initial letter sounds at the start of the word, so in closely connected words. So for example is Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled pepper. So next, the assonance, the close repetition of similar vowel sounds. So for example is he rolled the holy stone into place. So the repeated similar vowel sounds there is O. So okay, that's the assonance. So next is the consonants. Consonant sounds repeated in the middle or at the end of the word. So for example is fiddle faddle. So the repeated word there or letter there is the D. Okay, so next we have the euphony, so the sounds that are very pleasant to the ear. These are the use of sweet and melodious sounds for beautiful experience of sound and poetry. For example, the lovely lilies shade me as I stroll through the soft and dewy flower beds. So that's the euphony. So next, cacophony. This is the opposite of euphony. So this is the combination of words with loud, harsh sounds or unharmonious sounds that are used for a noisy or jarring poetic effect. So last is the onomatopoeia, or so these are words which sound like their meaning. So for example, buzzing of bees. So buzzing of bees or the tweeting of birds. So that's it for the techniques and devices of language, poetic language, or the language of poetry.
Another types of the language of poetry is the figure of speech. It is an expression where certain words are arranged in a particular way to achieve a particular effect. A form of expression used to convey meaning or heighten effect by comparing or identifying one thing with another that has a familiar meaning or connotation. We have the alliteration, antithesis, apostrophe, the circumlocution, epigram, euphemism, hyperbole, irony, litotes, metaphor, metonymy, onomatopoeia, oxymoron, paradox, personification, pleonasm, pun, simile, synecdoche, and understatement. What we have here is the simile. Simile is a direct comparison of two unlike things using like or as. For example, her eyes are like comets. As busy as a bee, she looks like you. And next is the metaphor. Metaphor is a direct comparison between two unlike things. For example, her finger danced across the keyboard. Life is a highway. Her eyes were diamonds. And the apostrophe. Apostrophe is speaking directly to a real or imagined listener or inanimate object, addressing that person or thing by name. Example: Oh, Captain, my Captain, our tearful trip is done. Next is the connotation. Connotation is the emotional, psychological, or social overtones of a word, its implications and associations are part of its literal meaning. And the denotation is the dictionary definition of a word or literal meaning. For example, is he looks like a Santa Claus. The connotation is he is giving gifts to everyone. And the denotation is he looks like Santa Claus that has a white beard and white hair and maybe have a big tummy. So another example is he is a lion. The connotation is he is a king because a lion is the king of jungle, and the denotation is maybe his face looks like a lion. And thank you guys for listening. That's all, and have a nice day ahead.